We're live. Dr. Paul here for various Substacks, Men's Psychology Magazine, my own Dr. Paul, Romantopedia, with, yet again, Jeremy Fox, the eminent and bright analyst of, in this case, television series. So I see we already have some folks joining in. We're here tonight we weren't exactly sure. We were just very excited about having binge watched this new Netflix series, Black Rabbit, with two of my favorite actors, Jude Law and Justin Bateman. Justine Bateman. Jason Bateman. um, yeah, and I got to tell you, maybe most of you guys have seen this already. It just dropped not that far back, and we don't want to ruin it for you. So, slight spoiler alert, but we're going to get more psychoanalytical about this than more spoiler happy, so to speak. We won't give you the worst, biggest spoiler of them all. We agreed not to do that.
We agreed not
Um,
to, absolutely.
yeah, so do see it. Um, I I started wondering about Shakespeare, and I gotta say, I searched Chat GPT and I said, which Shakespearean dramas are directly tied to this new series, Black Rabbit? And of course, it was not so useful from an analytic standpoint. Summer Night's Dream and Twelfth Night. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure about that. Maybe closer to Macbeth and some other bits and parts of Hamlet and things like this. And I'm sure we're going to get back on. He has a very attractive logo, but he'll be back on switching data sets here. All right, good, good, good. He's back.
Trying here, I've had it on Wi-Fi and then it didn't like that, and then have it on the
and
data and didn't like
data,
that. So we'll stick it on.
yeah.
We'll keep on Wi-Fi. I think that's the best bet because I got a bunch of waves for that. So
Yeah, let's give this a go. As we get later into the evening, maybe, the interweb signal will improve through lack of use, perhaps,
there you
except for
go.
those tuning in
Okay.
here. So yeah, I was just griping about Chat GPT being not so useful for looking at Shakespearean analogs to modern cinema in this
Sure.
case. And part of why I thought about Shakespeare, even more so than the ancient Greeks, although everything in Shakespeare is based on some bits and parts of ancient Greek myths. Um, I thought of Jude Law as the lead in this series, and Jason Bateman, coming off the Sopranos like success and thematic elements of Ozark. Those of you who have seen Ozark and, really wanted more than the seasons we were offered of that, I think kind of have it in this, in
Mhm.
Jason Bateman's character. I don't want to say it's, Ozark continued, because it's not at all. It's set in Manhattan. It's two brothers who are entrepreneurs, restaurateurs together. A topic near and dear to my heart, based on friendships I have, and also the fact that I was just a crazed fan of Jude Law ever since I don't know, 2014 or 15, somewhere around there. I was in London and I was doing lecturing and um, lecturing in my field. And I happened to have caught wind that if you go to a certain theater and you show up early enough in the morning, like 5 a.m., 4 a.m., or 5 a.m., and wait in line, you can get very cheap tickets, like
Ah,
the day of, for live theatrical performances. And
right.
guess what was playing? Hamlet with Jude Law.
Big deal.
And
It's
and I
very
was
big
like,
thing.
I was like second row. And these are really good seats too. It's to, give opportunity to the public that didn't otherwise get
Sure.
tickets early. And I gotta say, it was just, it was the most probably remarkable stage performance I've ever seen. Plus, the seats were that good too. It's like Jude Law's right in front of you doing Hamlet. So, I mean, ever since then, I was, destined or doomed to be a fan, destined. And so I love seeing him in this. And it turns out if it has elements from Shakespeare, it probably pulls the closest from Macbeth meets Hamlet somehow there, and it's themes of jealousy, envy, family,
Mm,
and debt and redemption, literal redemption of actual financial debt,
yeah.
but more important throughout this series is debts owed emotionally. So, in my view, in a way, the series is actually about love in
Mm,
in its
yes.
various forms. I mean, there are broken marriages. Everyone's divorced. Jude Law's
Yes.
divorced.
Yes.
Um, Jason Bateman is on the lam from who knows what various things, the law, the mob, various, and who knows what who the mother of his now 20 something daughter, what their relationship status was at some point. But it's
Yes, I
kind of
wondered
dark,
that as well, actually. That's a very good
dark
point.
and sad.
Yeah,
It's dark and sad, but so compelling. You can't turn away.
right,
Um,
right.
anyone who is a foodie would love it, from having been at
Sure.
restaurant openings and knowing what that's like, and knowing restaurateurs, and enjoying that industry, or having worked in that industry. You're gonna love this. It actually it didn't at all remind me of the other series that was really hot, The Bear,
Yeah.
which I didn't like nearly as much as this. Maybe it's because I like Manhattan a lot,
Mm,
but
interesting.
same topic, like the drama that can go on in the restaurant industry, and yet I like this way, way, way more than The Bear.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I've never seen the
so
Bears, so that.
compare there.
Yeah, I need to
But,
watch that. Compare there with the bear,
compare with The Bear.
which I will do with
But
great care, 'cause, with the Bears plot, I'm unaware. I've
yeah.
never seen it, so never seen that. I've heard about it. I've heard quite a bit about it, so,
But
well
jealousy and envy,
yeah,
debt
okay,
debt,
yeah,
wrongs, having done wrong,
well, some
especially
wrongdoing,
within
yeah,
families,
right,
right? And a restaurant staff is a family,
sure, yeah, I agree with
you
that,
know, a tight-knit family, often,
right,
usually.
yes,
So, betrayal, definitely betrayal. Betrayal within families, trauma within families, and most specifically, centrally, between two brothers, which
yeah,
then made me wonder, is it kind of Cain and Abel ish? Is it a Cain and Abel story? Well, not quite. If you ask ChatGPT, it says, yes, good thinking. It is about envy. It's like, thanks. Thank you, ChatGPT. Um, but yeah, it's about, brotherly psychodynamics in the context of domestic violence growing up.
yeah,
This
no,
story
this
gets
is
woven together as you go along.
yeah,
It begins kind of in medias res, and then moves forward, then jumps backwards. It's jumping all over the place, but kind of in a
yes,
tapestry that to me made emotional sense. Like the emotional feel was the same whether they were in the present time, or they were jumping back. It was the same emotion. It was like they
right,
were showing you the psychodynamic, future for what happens when two young boys are traumatized by their parents' domestic violence, really.
right, right, I like that. I would say that if people should also watch the show Beef. Um, and it had Stephen Yoon in it, among others, and it was basically one of these series that was about 8 episodes long, and it kind of explored. It's very interesting because it could also be read in a very analytic way where the characters had these particular flaws. I mean, and it was unraveled in that way. Yeah, 10 episodes on that one. So, all right, my thoughts on it. Well, to paint the picture
Yeah.
a little bit, what you're getting with the show, and what I'll do is try to paint with broad strokes. It opens up with Jude Law's character of Jake Friedkin, um, who is obviously a successful restaurant slash bar owner, and the bar's name is the Black Rabbit. And I mean, I can't overstate. This is like the place to be, like a Gordon Ramsay restaurant, like a Michelin 4-star restaurant where you've got the accoutrements and the environment, everything is opulent to the max, but in a way that isn't gaudy or garish. It's just the happening place to be. So opens up with this environment of a cool, stylish place. Jude Law giving a speech. Well, there's a robbery, so people are told to get to the ground, give up their jewelry, and then there's a cut, and this happens a lot of jump cuts, a lot of cutting away from scenes to a character who's this um, kind of bedraggled, long-haired um, person who's trying to stay at a casino and sell some coins, and it doesn't turn out too well. So he gets jumped. The Jason Bateman character, who's and this is not really. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it where spoilers that are under like 3 hours, right, is not a spoiler to me because this is a TV show, not a movie. So we're going to say, if I'm spoiling something for you that's in one of the first few hours, there you go. Sorry. So it
Yeah.
turns out this character who they're contrasting the Jude Law great restaurateur character with is um, the brother who is Vince Friedkin. So you've got Jake and Vince, and they're two brothers, and one's the straight laced restaurateur, and one is the the brother who seems like a wild man. And so throughout the course of the show, you see it's interesting because they show the flaws of the put together brother, played by Jude Law. You get to see um, Jake's flaws, and you get to see the strengths of Vince, and you get to see the dance between. You get to see the constant shuffle among their flaws, and you get to see that Jake is perpetually an overthinker because they started again. This is not a big spoiler, right? They started this restaurant together called the Black Rabbit, and you see Jake um, really overthinking. He's, oh, we can't do this, and you see Vince saying, oh, we could totally do it. Stop overthinking. And I love the psychological analysis of the personality because you've got Vince's character is probably very high in trait openness. He says, let's do this. We can do it. He's very enthusiastic, very extroverted. And you see that throughout the show. He's very good at talking. He's a bit of a sweet talker and charmer, but then gets into trouble. So he lacks what his brother Jake has. Jake is like conscientiousness
Yeah.
personified. So they make a
Yeah.
good person. They make like the best person together. They're two parts of this person of perfect conscientiousness and charisma, right? So Vince dampens Jake's neuroticism. Vince says, dude, we've got this. Keep going. I noticed that. That's their dynamic whenever there's flashbacks
Right.
where they're together is
Right.
the engine and the brake. You've got, however you want to phrase that, the accelerator and the brake. You've got the brake of Jake, where you've got his ability to say, this is unwise, this may be wise. And you've got Vince's capacity to say, okay, let's stop thinking and do that thing then. Let's keep going with the good
Yeah.
stuff and stop overthinking.
Yeah,
And
I
so
think
watch for that.
left brain, right brain too. I think,
Yes.
Jake's the left brained one and Vince is the
Yes.
right brained one.
And there's
It's also worth
also,
noting.
yeah,
No, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, it's worth noting, this, this restaurant is based on a real restaurant, that I used to actually frequent, the Spotted Pig, back in the day in New York, closed in 2020. There was
Interesting.
some kind of sexual harassment scandal. So the writers
In
of
the show.
the series actually they say they borrowed heavily from the actual history, and they frequented that restaurant, gastropub, back in the day.
Yeah.
Not that far back in the day, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So and it was located in Soho slash well near Magnolia Bakery. A lot of people know about that too, like from Sex in the City.
Very cool.
So anyway, yeah. So it's based on a real place with some real events, loosely borrowed from some real news stories about it.
Mm, interesting. Yeah, quite a bit borrowed. So essentially, you have here two brothers, and one is harboring a terrible secret. So Vince has and again, like, I'm not going to spoil it for you. You could probably work out like he has a massive addiction problem, and that's highlighted from the beginning of the show as actually a pivotal conflict point, as he can't stop getting into trouble. He's a bit of a deadbeat dad. He's a bounder. He's a bit of a rover, wanderer, whatever you want to say. And he just can't be still. He's a rolling stone, to use an old term.
Hmm.
And so you kind of get some glances early on of what's going on, but then by the midpoint of this season, you really get to see what began his trajectory toward addiction and poor behavior. And so, I mean, because it's kind of a running joke, like, oh, Vince is coming back. Oh, Vince is trouble. Vince, oh, but he's fun. He shakes things up. You see the characters,
Yeah.
the Black Rabbit, talk about him. But what I find interesting, and without spoiling it, is the I'm looking at this. So we talked about high trait openness for Vince, high extroversion, low neuroticism, high extroversion with Jake. Um, Communication could have solved between the two brothers on something on a shared trauma, could have solved a massive thing a lot in their life, because something happened when they were younger that they both had a perspective on, that if they'd shared it, it could have been massively useful. And so I think that's a takeaway. And also, probably my biggest, most fascinating point would be that Vince, in the repetition compulsion, is very big because when he was younger, he was involved in something very drastic. And as an adult, toward the end of the season, he is again. And it's almost as if he's working it out, and he got himself into something to be a protector again. If you think you know exactly what I'm talking about, he does it
Yeah.
again. And this time there's a recognition of, ah, so this is what this is. I'm noticing it now and aware of what this is. And I'm talking about it with my brother. So there's that communication element. And
Mm.
I think that
And
again,
I can see how it affects others.
it's
And
very analytic.
I see that it affects others.
So
He admits
yes,
to. He
the
goes,
compulsion.
I cause chaos for everybody.
Yes. The
I've just
compulsion.
realized I cause chaos.
Yeah, to recapitulate trauma, to work it out, to get it right this time, is full display here. And it's portrayed masterfully, where you wanna give the character a slap and you also wanna give him a hug. I mean, Vince is played masterfully. There's funny moments, he's just kind of a goofball, and he's got a great sense of humor. Um, I also thought he was maybe
Hmm.
gonna be revealed to be another son of a certain other character that
Oh.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we talk about it. I don't think he was, but another character says, "Oh, you know how I was close to your mother," and I wondered, was
Oh,
someone
I
else his
hadn't
real
thought that.
father?
They
Do
look
what?
so different. I hadn't thought about that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A mafia person. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Well, no, and I thought so. So, but I don't know that that's the case, and that's some inside baseball between us that we can cut out or whatever. But I can't resist here to an extent. I just think if you care about, well, something you brought up last time that I think was really noteworthy is you said, well, why do we need CPTSD as a diagnosis? And you had a really good question on that, which it would make its
Right.
own good show. I would say whatever you want to do with the C, you can take out the C, you can throw the C, you just keep the P as TSD. Um, He had trauma younger, and it stopped him from really having an identity apart from that. And that's really interesting with Vince. And that's very interesting because trauma impacts kids very differently than adults because kids, it gets integrated, their identity forms around it. Whereas as an adult, you have an
Mm.
identity and the trauma sticks to that. And it could be like it could be like a parasite, but you pluck it off and it's not infiltrated you. With a child, it's like the trauma's there and it's almost like something inside a tree and the tree grows around it. And so I think with Vince, we see he was young and he grew around this trauma that happened. And that's what people would say complex PTSD is growing around the trauma, but never really growing that well.
Yeah, I mean, that makes me think of a lot of things. I wanted
Good.
to specifically ask you about your views on trauma in boys and
Sure.
specifically brothers in this
Yeah.
case, and how they have an entirely different experience of it and take on it. And we can
Yeah.
go so far as to say there was domestic violence going on.
Absolutely.
They revealed that rather early.
Yes.
Um, but I was going to
Yes.
ask you why. I was going to ask you why is it that our our first instincts sometimes are to see somebody with, say, drug abuse or substance abuse and to just label them they're bad, that the person's bad, and they need to just get over it, and we don't know anything about their lives or their traumas, and trauma is so rampant. In fact, those colleagues we often talk about in London say that if you meet a male in a behavioral health setting, he's got PTSD. And I'm like, that's
Right.
remarkable. You can say that for 100% of them. And they say, yeah, what it is males have a stoicism instinct. So
Sure.
they won't, voluntarily uh, go to behavioral health treatment just for kicks or to self improve. At least the average one doesn't. And so if you see one, then it's really, really bad.
Yeah.
It is bad off, and it usually is PTSD. That's the most universal in
Yeah.
that situation. So that makes not only is Jason Bateman a likable fellow in real life or in many of
Yes.
the characters he picks, but like you said, this is an anti-hero. This is a likable, somewhat sometimes villainous
Yeah.
character. Certainly, the bane of the existence of Jude Law's character,
Right.
Jake, frequently, and yet he keeps getting forgiven, and you kind of understand why.
Yeah.
If you're a brother or you've had a brother or you've had a good friend that you have forgiven multiple times because you just love them,
Yes.
and the goalpost keeps changing over, well, where's the red line of our boundaries on your repetitive bad behavior? It's a real dilemma, I think, for just about all human beings, even very sophisticated, mature
Yes.
people, to
Yes.
figure
Yes.
this
Bingo.
this nugget out within a
Yeah.
family. Is blood thicker than water? Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Right.
Is it a unique circumstance? You were raised in the same home. Yes, very unique. You get to know this other person or people better than maybe anyone you've ever known, perhaps
Yeah.
even your spouse, because you spent so many years together and so many years knowing each other. And then how many times do you forgive them? Now, if they're an antisocial personality disordered person
Yeah.
and they're just a plain flat out criminal mind, and you can tell that they're severely narcissistic, which Vince is, but
Yeah.
it's in the trauma, it's through the prism of trauma. And I feel that that makes his behavior far more forgivable
Yeah.
by a
Yes.
brother, maybe not by society in general, but by a brother,
Right.
than somebody that's just a criminal mind, antisocial personality disordered person. What do you think?
Yeah, I would 100% agree. And I'll say, I think there's a tragedy to Vince, a very quiet, tragedy, in how he's so pathologically optimistic in many ways. So he he's shown with this rampant gambling addiction, and when he's ahead by like $17,000, like he's won 17K or something in an episode, he
Yeah.
bets it all. What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So he bets it all, and he loses it obviously, and there's this sort of, well, I'll get it next time. He has a real zest for life, and he has some good ideas, and he's very much an ideas guy. And so if he just knew when to leave well enough alone and not keep going, he would be a lot better off. And so that's the tragedy of his character is he's one of those best laid plans of mice and men, and one of those the road to hell's paved with good intentions characters where there's never really anything he's doing to make a decision that says I'm willing to hurt someone intentionally. Like I'm choosing to do this when I know it's going to hurt someone. It's more I don't have good boundaries or the ability to say wait, I need to stop. So, like the observing ego ability to say, I'm getting caught up in my own fun right now. I think, or in the moment, and I'm too optimistic. I think that's one of Vince's flaws. But that's what makes him magnetic because he can always say, "Hey, we've got this restaurant thing figured." His optimism shows why he's magnetic and why you have to put a boundary between yourself and people who will pull you into stuff, and you can say, "Hey, I love your ideas and I think we could do this, but this is where we need to draw the line. We need to mitigate and minimize variables." And Vince is not good at that. He gets too, and this is like it shows a good look at gambling addiction. It's always like the ability to say, "Oh, I'll do it next time." Well, you can't prove they won't win next time, but it's probability, right? So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I don't think he's a bad person. I think he's someone who is very impulsive and lacks good mental gatekeeping for himself.
Well, right. I think one of the reasons that I right away felt like this was a beautiful work of art dramatically
Yeah. Yeah.
is that in its complexity, there are all these opposites competing with each other, juxtaposed against each other, and yet woven into, I don't want to sound trite, but like a tapestry that gives you a big picture, e- emotional, thematic
Right.
experience of it that
Right.
that holds together and makes sense. And one example is, well, consider what you're the expert on this in terms of trauma in children. If a boy age 7 or 10 or somewhere around there has to do a noble and right adult man like action, but he's not, he's a boy.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's unfair. And on top of that, it's massively traumatic and guilt inducing. How do you rectify those things? Because without spoiling it,
Yeah.
he does something morally right, but at age 7
Yeah.
to 10,
Yeah.
but it's by virtue of having had to do it, it is massively traumatic, and it's what an adult man decision would have to be. So he's pushed ahead into the skin of a man at that age. So there is a goodness to him. He's morally his moral core is good and solid. At least originally it was.
Yeah.
And then but then he gets into the substance abuse and bad business deals, and he's reliving the trauma, and he's doing the repetition compulsion and all these neurotic things that come later. So it forces you to consider people you have known and had bad blood with and who have betrayed you, because this is about betrayal. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of betrayals in this series. It forces you to consider humans as more than, one dimensional all good or all bad, or,
Yeah.
oh, this is the villain, this is the hero, that brother's good, that other brother's bad. Well, there's some bad things about Jake too. Jake's not
Yes, there.
all good, right?
No,
There's lots of
no.
dishonest things about him, and
Yes.
there's something to do with sexual harassment at the restaurant, and some maybe involving
Plenty.
him. Who
Yeah.
knows?
There's a few things
Y-
there.
You know, um, so neither brother is all good nor all bad, which is why it isn't exactly the Cain and Abel story, right? The Cain and Abel story, one brother's good, the other brother's bad.
Yeah.
This is kind of like they're both Cain and they're both Abel
Well, I actually
in
think,
different degrees.
yeah,
So,
Cain actually could have turned around. So Cain is an example of pride. Cain's offering wasn't to God's standard. And instead of trying to figure out why, his answer was to eliminate the competition. And I think there's something powerful with that because, that takes for granted. Because, see, you can always hope for more. Like, people back then didn't live in the Garden of Eden anymore and they were mortal. But so they could say, well, we used to have the garden. It's like, well, you're talking to God and you're giving an offering and you have a relationship with God. Well, that's not enough. We're not in the garden. So even back then, you can see like there's sour grapes. And so Cain was the chief example of sour grapes of, oh, well, I was told my offering wasn't good enough. Instead of trying to figure out what I can do at this age and get better, I'm going to do the most drastic thing. Like, God won't know that. So it's like pathological psychotic pride, really. And I'm saying psychotic on purpose and not psychopathic because I think
yeah.
you have to be so out of touch with future thinking and planning to think that you can end your brother and it somehow be okay or God not care and you can lie to God. I think that shows almost an animalistic urge to end someone versus a more tactical, cold blooded approach. So, anyway, the question of what happens to a child has to do that. Well, I think you see a lot of affect intolerance. You see a lot of meaning to boil it down. Um, Inability to tolerate emotion. So if strong emotion comes up, go to alcohol, go to drugs, go to gambling, do something to cover it up. So, I mean, from teen years onward, it's possible Vince was involved in that kind of stuff. I mean, this is also the question that goes with how to treat veterans with moral injury. So, what you do is you help them to grieve that they had to do something drastic and grieve. This is a big concept in any good trauma therapy is to grieve the ambiguity, grieve your human finitude or or limitedness, your limitation, because what I've noticed with trauma survivors is in the wake of doing something or not doing something, in the wake of replaying it thousands of times, they see it perfectly now and know exactly what they should have done. And they lose track of the fact that in that moment they didn't know. And part of it is like, let's go back to that moment in EMDR therapy. Go with
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
What are you seeing then? And you're noticing your eyes move back and forth. And that's what you're going. It's like, oh, I'm a monster. I'm irredeemable. Okay, go with that. So what you're doing is you're taking it back to fundamentals of how the memory was stored in the moment, and you're bringing the present adult vision to bear on the child that did something terrible in their mind, and you're meeting those memory networks. You're trying to put together the adult ability to say, wow, that was necessary but upsetting, and the child's terror and the child's guilt. And you're trying to have the current memory networks integrate the guilt in a way that says, okay, that's valid, but it's over, to disperse it. And so, and by the way, some good verbal communication between the brothers that happened later on in the series should have happened earlier. And so that would have buffered, that would have, and as kids, like they could have both been taken to a good child therapist as kids. Therapists only have to tell things that you're going to do. They don't have to report past crimes, by the way. So that's another point that I was thinking of with the show is we don't have to tell what you've done. We have to tell what you're planning on doing. So it's a great question. I could talk all day, but basically, children have to be acquainted with the fact that they did what they thought. It doesn't mean they're terrible. Um, they have to have a sense of normalcy. They have to be put back into normal environments, and also, um, I think early EMDR for seeing something terrible would be really good. So desensitizing the visuals, which would be really good in this case, that we're talking about, and trying to come to terms with what it meant to do something adult, and then what it means to face those big feelings and then try to live a normal childhood and then adolescence. That would have been optimal. It would have been realizing that was bad and sometimes there's no good choice.
Yeah, but then coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? Because
Yes.
one of the things that makes this kind of Shakespearean level, and
Yes.
I would assume Jude Law gets involved with projects that have that kind of promise. Uh,
Yeah.
Jason Bateman too.
Yeah.
Um, is that okay? Well, there are bits and parts of that. Back to Cain and Abel before we do Shakespeare.
Sure.
Neither brother is full on Cain. Neither brother is full on Abel. At various points in their own personal perspective, they could have seen the other brother as having just betrayed him. Like there are betrayals, little mini betrayals all through this whole series
Yeah.
where Jake lets down Vinny and Vinny lets down Jake
Yeah,
back and
absolutely.
forth,
Yeah.
but there's never a complete dissolution of permanent dissolution of the relationship
No,
as
there's not.
brothers. There's
No.
always a willingness to forgive, but not
Yeah.
forget. Um, so I found it gratifying that when either of them had the chance to just completely betray for good, like send the other brother to jail
Yeah.
or call the cops or kill the
Prisoner's
brother,
dilemma.
literally Canaan. Yeah. In the
Yeah.
prisoner's dilemma,
Yeah.
neither of them chooses the darkest path ever
Right. You're right.
with the other brother, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
so now back to Shakespeare. So
Sure.
bits and parts of Hamlet, bits and parts of Macbeth.
Yeah.
In a Hamlet sense, the questions, especially that Vinny asks, are a lot like Hamlet's. And was Hamlet himself ready to become king? Hell
Mm.
no. He was an adolescent
Sure.
essentially. He had
Right.
he had adolescent questions and he struggled like an adolescent with them. He wasn't ready. So I think there's an overlay of that kind of unreadiness in for a full adult life, really for both of these boys.
Yeah.
And I notice I just called them boys because
Right.
I'm still living in their childhood in this because it weighs so heavily over all
Yeah.
of their behaviors of
Yeah.
adult life. It was never fully processed, as you observed,
Yeah. It
and
was not.
they both were involved in the traumatic incident, but in very different ways and in different roles. And so it has that Macbeth like, or I'm sorry, that Hamlet like, what's life all about? And I need to be ready to step into my role as a king, as a man. And yet
Yes.
they never, neither of them ever really was fully ready to
Sure.
step into a responsible man role. Consider that before their success with the restaurant, or let's say their struggle with co-running a restaurant, they had stunning success as rock stars. They were in a
Yeah, they
rock
did.
band together. That's
Yes.
what propelled them to the financial place to be able to buy a restaurant, right? So it's that classic
Yes.
story of fame
Yeah.
going from one art to another.
Yep.
but the life of a rock star can have a lot of an adolescent flair to it,
Yes,
a
it
lot of
can. Oh, you
a
nailed it. Yeah.
Peter Pan, Peter Panishness to it, right? And then finally, last thing I'll say about Shakespeare, let's go to Macbeth. I think
Yeah.
what I wondered about this series in terms of, well, what Macbeth elements are there in it? And the one that stands out the most is the role of ambition and fantasy. And
Yeah.
in the case of the two brothers, how does ambition and fantasy interlace with their trauma,
Yeah.
their joint trauma as a salve on the wound temporarily to fantasize, to use fantasy as an ego defense, to escape reality for the
Yeah.
purpose of surviving
Yeah.
long enough to fight another day and live another day.
Right.
Um, and in Macbeth, you see, all of these somatic symptoms and Lady Macbeth's rumination as a kind of fantastical attempt to undo murder,
Yep.
or her complicit nature in the murder of the king, King Duncan,
Yeah.
when Macbeth kills the king. And there's also this Macbeth like feature, I think, to this series and between the two brothers, especially where they kind of convince each other to do stuff that is unwise but might work and perhaps did work when they were musicians together to,
Yes.
shoot for the stars and hope for the best, see what happens. And the 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 fact that in Macbeth, Lady Macbeth is really, really, really guilty.
Yes.
Macbeth is guilty.
Yeah.
They're going to be Shakespearean scholars come after me for saying this probably, but this is how I feel from a psychoanalytic standpoint.
Yeah.
um, she's the most guilty party by manipulating this weaker mind into
Sure.
doing her bidding. The covert narcissist puppet master. He does murder. She doesn't technically murder, but she puppeteered him into murdering.
Yeah, good say she's the
And there's
proto Charles Manson, if you think about it.
yes, 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 exactly. But among these brothers and among those who are doing all these financial deals in this series, they kind of have a manipulative effect on each other, getting each other to do some things that are unwise, maybe unjust in some ways, but
Sure.
nonetheless have a chance of working out,
Right.
or have it, or like a Hail Mary pass,
Yeah.
like all hope looks lost, and then one brother eggs the other brother into doing some
Yeah.
maybe somewhat shady thing, and then
Yes.
it works out for now. For one more episode, it works out at least. What do you think of that?
Um, I think that's absolutely accurate. I think one of the interesting things about a good TV show is whatever the setting, whether it's sci-fi, whether it's drama or romance, you want to make conflict believable and compelling. Conflict on the show of, well, yeah, this is a great idea and it almost worked out great, but this one unpredictable human ego element got in the way. Ah, yes. That's familiar. I love what you're saying. I think you're totally right with that. Like I'm thinking of this thing they do to get to raise money. And during all of that, there's characters who see them and as therapists, by the way, both of us, it's like because you've done talk therapy with people and not just given medicine. And I obviously do talk therapy for a living. So it's very interesting because you see that someone slips into this restaurant and the other characters were so busy and the who were supposed to be running this event and that one of these characters is a bad egg basically, and another
Mm,
character sees that this person has infiltrated the setting and she's so hurt by this, and the other character didn't willingly let this person in. They came in and they just didn't immediately act and kick this person out, And it's like, as therapists, if we have had a long day and a client thinks we're bored with them, or if we there's so many different things where someone could take it the wrong way and think, wow, this person doesn't care about me. My doctor doesn't care about my therapist. And I kind of got the feeling of like one of the main characters, they weren't approving of this dude who was in the bar. It was when Jake was running around and Jules was in there and you know, um the cook, the chef, was crestfallen by the fact that this person was around who she'd been promised wouldn't get in, and she took it as such a harmful thing and almost intentional, from Jake when he was so hassled and running around, and it just shows that people can take things in such serious ways, and it shows the human miscommunication element makes for great
Mm,
TV because it's so relatable. And there were so many moments of that in this show where something was blown up because of hurt feelings that could have been communicated out, but it would have taken someone a few seconds or minutes to sit on their emotions and not send that text or cut off that relationship. And as a therapist,
uh-huh.
to me, that blows my mind how accurate that is for many situations.
Well, I stand corrected then on that count. Midsummer Night's Dream
Yes.
is a little bit in here too,
Yeah.
but the
Good.
miscommunication,
Yeah.
wearing masks, playing roles.
Yes.
What are this person's actual intentions, and who is this person really? You know, I don't think
Oh
it's a
yeah.
spoiler to say that it'd be gratifying to see that if two brothers who all their lives never quite completely know that they can totally trust the other one, if
Yeah.
by the end of a series there's no doubt that they they love each other,
Right.
that they
Very
would
convincing.
sacrifice themselves for the other.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and to answer your question, I love what you brought up about the eternal sort of adolescence they both had. So you've got Jake's character is like a more socially acceptable stunted person. He makes
Mhm.
his
Yeah.
indiscretions, but he cleans up for it. He doesn't waste too much money. I mean, he's divorced, and you figure that out pretty quickly. That's not much of a spoiler at
Yeah.
all, actually. I think it's episode 1 or 2. So clearly that didn't work out. And he has his dalliances with enjoying fame and the title. And what's interesting to me is it seems like Vince doesn't have a big quote ego in that pure sense or a big desire for adulation or adoration. He has more of a desire for thrills from experiences. And so clearly gambling and getting into hot water with big peak moments that require money or loans is going to be massively dangerous, right? But Jake's
Yeah.
danger is in letting his ego and his literal lust ruin relationships and burn bridges. And so, or his lack of gatekeeping. If he doesn't know how to tell someone, stay the bleep out of my restaurant, or he doesn't know how to say, hey, I've got to keep my staff safe and I can't fall for their flattery. Like, there's moments he's portrayed as certainly complex and flawed, but in a way that in society, maybe you get a slap on the wrist and you get your reputation kind of dinged, like a little bit of a chip taken out of it, but you're not being
Yeah.
hunted by the mob, which again, not a spoiler. This is a very early plot point in the show. So funny how that their two flaw trajectories are displayed too, which again is brilliant writing. Like show how someone's flaws chase them down and contrast it with other people's flaws. People's flaws don't play nicely. And when you have two brothers who kind of grew up in the midst of trauma, I mean, they're if you gave them fictionally the ACEs exam, right? The adverse childhood experiences scale. I was going through checking the boxes, and I don't want to reveal all of them because it would spoil the show for people. But it's a hefty amount where, did your dad hit your mom or did you see parents hit each other? Did you get sweared at as a kid? Did somebody go to prison or jail in your home? Check, check, check. These dudes grew up with that. So it was very high stakes in their life, very much like life or death. And so then they have a career that's like move fast, break things, right? Like as a musician, like boom, 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 make money quick. Yeah. And then a restaurant, like make money, boom or bust, high energy. Like high
Yeah.
energy seem to be like their lifestyle. And who gets swept up into that kind of becomes whoever is either after them or hurt by them in the show.
Mm. What do you think of ambition
Mm,
and trauma? What does ambition have to do with trauma?
man,
Is there
that's a
more
great.
ambition in the more traumatized?
Um,
I mean, you always hear the stories about, the world's wealthiest non-inherited wealth people always came from nothing kind of a thing. They were hungrier.
sure.
Um, so does ambition have anything to do with trauma
You know
or the
what?
degree of ambition?
I like that. I think that early relational trauma can fuel ambition overdrive. Um, and that can occur. Too much tends to blunt it. So people who had severe early trauma in childhood often
Yeah.
don't don't have much grit. And so it's a great question. It would be interesting to know. We don't have a longitudinal study with the data set to map trauma
Yeah.
exposure with levels of ambition. I think it's a good idea. Um, if the
I mean,
quality, no, go ahead.
the only thing I have to latch on to as far as trying to answer my own question, lead me with this, is as you've heard me say before, I believe that trauma isn't trauma unless it has caused shame.
Yeah,
Why? Because if it didn't cause shame, then the damage done was more, you could term it an annoyance, a disappointment, but not a trauma. I mean,
yeah,
trauma implies in all of its definitions to date damage to the personhood of the person, the sense of dignity of self. Self has been damaged, personhood has been damaged or violated. It's that bad, or it's not a trauma. It's an annoyance, or it's a disappointment, but not a
yeah.
trauma. So shame has to have occurred, and then
I agree with that.
based on
100%.
what we are learning about masculine instincts, feminine instincts starting to emerge from evolutionary psychology, but already existed with Jungian psychology, the concepts did,
Sure.
then shame, I've always defined for myself as not some generic loosey goosey thing that kind of means feeling embarrassed or guilty or something,
Yeah,
but rather that for a biologic male who orients himself toward masculinity, it's diminishment of actual masculinity. And for a biologic female who orients herself toward femininity, it is in fact a diminishment of femininity, which the synonym for masculine and feminine that Freud used was libido, which didn't mean sexual appetite, it meant life force. It meant feeling of aliveness or of existing, or today, many people might say having a voice or being embodied or
yeah,
being validated or, um, you know what I'm talking about. So a sense of dignity, a sense of existing, a sense of being alive, and having life force to you is what is always diminished in any trauma.
yes.
For males, biologic males, I view that as masculinity has been cut down. It's always some exact feature of masculine life or masculine instincts, that you can see in consumerism behavior, why males buy certain things, why females buy other things, why both of them buy some similar things, a lot of
Right.
similar things.
Yeah.
Um, right? don't mess around when there's money on the table, right?
I
So
have an
there are
answer for you.
differences.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you finish that though.
Well, so if trauma always produces shame, or it's not trauma, and if shame, at least in what how I'm defining it, is always a diminishment, however small, of masculinity for those oriented toward that, or femininity for those oriented toward that,
Right.
then that means that ergo, why would somebody be way over the top ambitious if they had been traumatized? Well, if it was severe enough trauma,
Yeah.
then the ambition could be coming from a, an attempt to recover a significant amount of lost masculinity or femininity.
Yes. Very good point.
That the ambition itself is for the purpose of recovering that. In
Right.
this case, via being a rock star, being a star restaurateur,
Yes.
successful in business, successful in career.
Right. Well, so Vince and Jake saw a father who was attempting to make it big and make a hustle and was lively and kind when he was sober. And so they had a template there to an extent. Um, and then they made their own efforts. I mean, so essentially if you learn how to strive and to do that, but then you see somebody doing it poorly, then you can at least kind of try for something better. And I think when you look at dark triad or tetrad elements and you look at how narcissism, grandiosity can propel you. I mean, if you're a good self promoter, you'll do well for a time. And the research bears that out. The research bears out that, narcissism and dark triad elements can can have moderate impact on success and it can also be short lived. Like it could be dangerous because you can offend others and you can kind of have a boom and bust effect on getting somewhere, but then it being fragile and evaporating. Well, I mean, much like what happened with uh our main characters. I mean, and also the Catch Me If You Can, Frank Abagnale, he
Mhm.
for years, he said certain things in his stories that just aren't true. Like there was a major YouTube video expose recently that I watched that systematically took apart a lot of the claims that Frank made, and people loved the story. But even now, 2025, decades after even the movie Catch Me If You Can with
Yeah,
Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks, that
yeah,
was based on stuff from the 70s and 80s. I mean, he could have gotten away with it if it weren't for those pesky kids, with
yeah,
YouTube. So, and research. So I think the answer is if your ambition is fueled through the right means that trauma says I will survive, I want to propel myself and do better than my predecessor, my parents, and I'm going to do it in a way where I protect others and myself. Great. If there is some element where it requires you to exploit others or to lie inveterately, beware. It can and likely will catch up. So I think the way you see people with great trauma develop can either go with post traumatic growth, which is what you're talking about, which is an emerging field, by the way, much like men's psychology,
yeah,
um, or the dark path of, and I'm not calling anyone out in particular about this. I'm just saying, well, I will. I'll say like Charles Manson. I've brought him up twice in one broadcast. I mean, that's wild. Because Lady Macbeth was much like him. She got in someone's head enough that she made them a murderer. So, um, and so she's viewed as very chilling because of that. Much like Charles Manson was viewed the same. So when you have a dark, manipulative type, and he went through massive trauma. So you look at that and you say, well, what was his ambition? What could he have directed that toward, in a company where he did mergers and acquisitions and he did hostile takeovers? I mean, it would have been grand. He could have been a Steve Jobs type who got in other people's heads that way, because I don't wanna be rude about the dead, but Steve Jobs is known to have been rather brusque and somewhat,
Mm.
curt. So, I mean, go look up what Mr. Wonderful, the Shark Tank shark, has said. I mean, he talks about his encounters with Steve back in the day. So, you look at what trauma, and you see it's like squeezing a balloon. The balloon animal is made up of different shapes that come out, like the ears are IQ, and the body is emotional stuff and
Yeah.
personality, like conscientiousness and neuroticism, and the legs are early childhood environment. Like, it's also complex to say, how does the trauma shape the ambition? Well, you need the talent. You need emotional regulation enough where you're not going to be absolutely wild on people and be sent to prison. You need all these elements to come together, and you have to be aware of which ones aren't as an individual and help to shape them up like the balloon animal, to twist it back together and say, this is me.
Mm. It, I wanted to take what you just said and then apply it to, before we start to close, apply it to, what's the real nature of these 2 characters, these 2 brothers, and I was okay, there's pure PTSD, and there's pure access to narcissistic pathology, narcissistic personality disorder, and antisocial personality. And when you first meet Vince and he's introduced, you're thinking, "Oh man, this guy's like all criminal. Like he's
Yes.
he's gonna be the villain. That's all there is to him. He's gonna do a bunch of bad things."
Sure.
And then as you get along further in this, you start to see, "Oh, wait a minute. I'm not sure he's that bad of a guy as opposed
Right.
to a guy who has had bad luck and or trauma,
Yeah.
which is the same thing." Um,
Right.
and and then I realized, why does why do access to conditions, cluster B conditions, especially narcissistic PD, often look a lot like PTSD, at least phenomenologically on the surface? It looks like
Mm.
worse boundaries, not respecting people, selfishness, big emotions, especially anger, losing control, emotional dysregulation, and losing control. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute. With narcissistic PD and just narcissism in general, a person is being more childlike in an adult's body,
Yeah.
which renders them more survivalist, let's say, or more concerned with their own needs,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
in a survivalist way. I'm beating around the bush. I'm talking about the reptilian brain.
Yep.
They're more id driven. They're
Of
id
course.
driven, to use
Yep.
Freudian term, or I like reptilian brain driven.
Yeah.
They're instinctual. They're running on instincts. And that's
Right.
how we say children act out. Well, what's acting out? What's acting out is the instincts are running the show, unmitigated, not controlled by the conscious
Yes.
um, morality of the person.
Yes.
So that's a
Agreed.
narcissist. But then PTSD, what's similar and different? Well, what's similar is survivalist mentality in the primitive person. It's all about me. But in the traumatized person, they had done some moral development
Yeah. Yeah.
until the point of the trauma,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're knocked down. And part of what, correct me if I'm wrong, they used to define trauma, PTSD, as requiring a witnessing of a death or
Yes.
feeling your life might be threatened. And I think
Right.
to this day, that's still part of the definition, even though we kind of bend the rules on that for other kinds of terrible, terrible human experiences
Yes.
that don't involve death directly. But if death is a threat or possible in a trauma, then isn't that the same concept? Survivalist thinking. But
Yes.
they're similar in ways, but they're not exactly the same thing. And I see that in the characters of Vince and Jake, in the sense that I just realized I don't think all through that series either one of them ever lied to the other
Mm.
brother. They they did maybe terrible things. They said, "I'm done with you.
Yeah.
I can't deal with you anymore." They, you know, maybe they betrayed each other, but for what it's worth, I don't think they ever lied to each other. They
Yeah.
told each other the feelings that they were having about the bad behavior on the part of the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to my mind, that seems like what two traumatized brothers might do in conducting themselves
Yes.
with each other. Whereas a narcissistic PD person definitely lies. It's part of
Yes.
their whole set of symptoms and behaviors is lying,
Right.
dishonesty. So
I
I
mean,
thought that was a nuance.
I love it. I've got to be honest. Some of my clients that were the most socially intelligent, winsome individuals have also been through trauma and qualified for PTSD diagnosis. So I think what we have to do, we basically have to say what is there that's buffering you. And so for some of my clients, it was either good relationships with teachers, other kids, grandparents, a different parent, or an aunt, an uncle, whatever. What helps you to avoid the darkness of meaninglessness? And when Vince says, "I ruin everything," I wrote that down from one of the episodes. It's like, well, look at what's happening. Look at the why. Look at the overreaching and the desire for the fantasy life and that everything be perfect and take a win, right? Take a win, WIN. So, and fails to do that sometimes. So you have to know when to hold and when to fold them, as a great man once said. And Vince does not know when to fold. And that's quite literally a great example as a gambler that he is. So anyway, um, I think you're right. I think it can't. I don't. Anytime someone has swagger or confidence and deploys it, it doesn't mean they're narcissistic. I think it's very important. It means it's important to delineate that. It means they're doing what's socially expected in certain careers, for one thing. And
Yeah,
as a restaurateur, as an entertainer, you want to be winsome, fun, and the center of attention, and give someone a
yeah,
show. It's what they kind of paid for. So
right.
it's not. I
Well,
wouldn't chalk it up. I love what you're saying.
I always like the quote from the book written by test pilot Chuck Yeager, and his one quote
Ooh,
was, "It ain't bragging if you can do the thing."
that's true. No, it's true. We have to realize that
It
culturally.
healthy pride.
Yes.
Different from narcissistic pride.
I
Yeah,
think it's interesting because biting off more than you can chew does not mean you're narcissistic. I think Vince does it inveterately. Like,
yeah,
that's his addiction. His addiction, more than anything, is to try too much, really. Like, and to
yeah,
then you cannot do everything at all times. You have to be regulated, and that's part of being an adult, right? And it's interesting. The childlike desire to keep doing anything could be a holdover from his stunted youth. I mean, that could be his big thing that he would need to work on. He didn't work on that in therapy. He didn't work on the ability to say, "Hey, wait a minute. Good is better than perfect. Excellence, no. What is it? I'm making something up, or maybe this exists. I know the term excellence better than perfect, or don't let perfect be the enemy of excellent. But I would say, um,
yeah,
good's better than bad, and excellence better than good. But perfect's not possible. Like, and Vince is not tragically able to realize that in this season. So I think you just have to say what what is this pathology? I mean, the repetition compulsion can be very powerful. I mean, sublimation's powerful. What if they're both running on that for quite a bit as a defense mechanism, both the brothers, and then there's cracks and
Mm,
there's remissions, there's relapses, tons of that. And I think
yeah,
the dynamic of Jake enabling is really explored very well toward the middle and end of this season. I think they need a good interventionist. I'll say that. That would have been a fun. I
yeah,
mean, that would not make for fun viewing, except for people like you and me, or people who like psychology. It's where I got my stars watching stuff as a teen that was like intervention, the show. But it doesn't. It's interesting. I think it's so easy, especially as a male, to throw in the masculine element, do what Vince did and say, "I'm doing fine. I'm doing great." Here's the shell game. Watch over here. I'm doing great. Here's my new thing. Let's do this. And then to kind of relapse again later. Be
hmm,
the
yeah,
entertaining knight. And then all along, your armor's rusting. So, very interesting exploration of that part of masculinity as well. That if you have a fun personality and you can be complimentary and get stuff done a lot, massive flaws can keep coming up, but in ways not be dealt with early enough.
yeah. Well said. I think there could be more to
Thank
this
you.
this particular season.
I
Yeah, well
agree.
said. Very well said.
You
There could
do
be
too.
individual episodes perhaps we could look at. But one of the things before getting on tonight, I want to this is my last statement about it for now. Our big summary of everything here of the whole season is the very last episode is titled Isle of Joy. And I was like, what about that was joy?
Mm, yes.
Nothing.
Right.
So I looked into why is it called that? And it turns out that an Ella Fitzgerald song, classic
Mm,
uh nostalgic song about Manhattan called Isle of Joy is
yes.
played several times through that episode.
Yeah.
And it makes sense from a psychodynamic standpoint because the brothers in their whatever this unprocessed trauma has done to their lives and to each other, it is like starting to escalate and turning into a runaway freight train, so to speak. So it's not real hopeful as we move further and further into, again, like Macbeth, it like things are going to blow up bigger and bigger,
Yes.
get to the climax of the piece. And so why Isle of Joy? Well, because it does have the last episode does have this nature to it where they're in their own brother world with each other. Even though bad guys are chasing them and it looks pretty hopeless, they're getting this more enriched understanding of their mutual past through finally talking about it
Yeah.
while tragedies going on, loss is just building up all around them. So they're insulated from the real world and the mafia and business and failing business and all the bad stuff. They're insulated in their own world of being brothers.
Yeah.
And that gives the transitional space to be able to finally go back and talk some things out about their childhood past. So,
Yeah. I loved that. Very well said. I noticed that as well, that there was like a liminal space between of, and it's very interesting because when do you ever make time for that kind of a talk? And I think people can take that as application in their lives. Is this talk happened when there was nothing else to lose, really. And so don't allow difficult conversations to wait for that time when there's nothing else to lose, because, you know, there's so much that can be addressed now, even if it is awkward, because the awkwardness will subside, but it won't get,
right.
but no change can be made if you don't first introduce the awkward, ride it out like a wave and build something. So love your point there. It is worth seeing for that, worth the price of admission alone to see the great reconciliation, the great hashing out. And what a good way to put a heartfelt conversation to show is to surround it with action, to keep the action fans and the intellectual lovers of dialogue happy, because sometimes they're the same. I love both. So, much like
Yeah.
Vince and Jake representing two different ways of thinking, the show puts so much together and makes it fit. That's kind of my review.
Yeah.
Is it puts the human experience together and shows it to us, and that's what all great art does. Is it reflects, but it reflects, but that's not all. It reflects in an expedient way that gives you, obviously it's shorter than an actual life because you have to you have to engage with it during your life. So it's like a good art is like a life within the art. It's seeing it, it's almost a virtual life in some way to see the best and the worst elements of it. And you walk away with it. It's a high order, it's a tall order. But that's why it's
Yeah.
only the
Yeah.
best art that does that, like Shakespeare. And my big walk away point is takeaway point for now for masculinity is try to embody masculine virtue. Try to embody good, and not even if you want to say for anyone, it could be try to embody openness and conscientiousness, because either brother does that, and then when they're together it's amazing. Surround yourself with the positive traits you don't have, if you can. Like if you're not that open but you're conscientious, try to have a creative person around you. If you're creative but can't ever get anything done, or you aren't grounded, try to have that conscientious friend as a sounding board. I really got that from this show, along with
Yeah.
the brotherly love and good communication. I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. For all this thinking of, is it like Hamlet? Is it like Macbeth? Is it
Good
like the Greek
question.
tragedies? What's the overlay here? Is it about betrayal? Yes. Is it
Titus
about
Andronicus.
redemption? Yes. Yeah, exactly.
It's a
Um,
bloody
it,
thing.
it's literally about debt
Yeah.
and literally about redeeming debt for real, but it's also about the debt caused by traumas and finding redemption of having had something taken from you
Yes.
uh, traumatically, especially for children to experience that. And so by the end, I was like, oh, well, the Harvard study, it's right. The only thing that matters is love. The thing that's responsible for the most human happiness is, they say, friendship, total number of friends, but that's love. And
Yeah, that
it's
is
the
love. You're
love
right.
between these two brothers that is the only thing that ever could have healed, um, turned around a tragedy, let's say.
Yes.
All
What a
right.
great point. Keeping it alive.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being up so late and making it happen and binge watching and
Yeah.
us both doing our homework. All right.
Thank
More to
you.
come.
More to come. It was excellent. And I'm glad I watched it
Yeah.
quickly together because I think that's what
Yeah.
painted the enriching picture of the characters for me, is to see the cumulative
Yeah.
morass of their poor decisions rather than spacing it out. Two painful sittings, basically.
Right.
Not painful in the melodramatic sense, obviously not really.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, love it.
That's right. That's right.
This was
All
fun.
right, buddy. I'll see you next time. Thank you all for
Absolutely.
joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.